She came for the game and a chance win. She left, running a world where chance was no longer trusted. Tuesday night bingo. Every Tuesday, 7 sharp, Ruth pulled on the antler sweater. It itched, but without it, no wins. That's how she told it anyway. The bus dragged slow, like saving gas. Bags rustled. Lotion, mothballs, silence. Talk was a hole in a fence. Show it, and eyes would press through. The hall smelled of linoleum gone sour, coffee burnt twice. Lamps buzzed, flies in a jar. On stage, Harold, ex-electrician, spinning the cage like a cranky motor. "Cage hums like a transformer," he said, ball in hand. "If it hums, we log it," Edna shot back, ledger fat. Sign above, complaints Thursdays. Ruth dabbed her squares slow, blinked, kept her eyes from watering. Patience, her only chip. Then a slip. Harold turned a ball, grunted, slid it back in. The number already spoken. On Ruth's card, the square sat empty. Nobody flinched. Only Walter, old man in the cap, squinted, stopped chewing gum. Her fingers shook. Raise a hand? Say it out loud? Faces stayed stone. Silence here cost more than words. She stayed quiet. 20 minutes later, the line was hers. "Bingo!" Louder than she meant. Harold glanced over glasses, nodded like testing a bulb. 1,200 in her hand, shoved like a clinic slip. No claps. Edna scribbled. Walter rose last, eyes on her, as if storing her face away. On the bus window, her profile, and in the same glass, his eyes. The stoplight flickered, same as in the hall. Bus jolted, cane rattled. Walter tapped the pane with a coin, hid it in his fist, like he was checking whose turn came next. On the center door, paper flapped. Cashier closes 9:10. Complaints Thursdays. The sheet slapped glass like a fish on a boat hull. Ruth thought, no batteries at home for the flashlight. For some reason, that mattered. The check lay on the kitchen table, between instant coffee and the salt shaker. Lamp blinked, faucet dripped, a beat, steady. The paper still warm, like strange hands had just held it. $1,200, enough for glasses. Heat bill, too. Ruth slid it into her purse, walked to the pharmacy. "No discounts," the clerk said. "Sometimes you just get lucky." "Lucky," Ruth answered, "is when somebody shuts their eyes." Back home, a clean notebook. First line, Mildred, plus $20. Pen lined up neat on the page. Tuesday, she came early. The bill slipped into Mildred's bag quiet, like it lived there. At the door, Mildred yelped, "Extra money! A miracle!" Laughter, a cross sign or two. Edna looked up, frowned, marked something. Next week, a pastry box by the entrance. No name. Folks cut slices, nodded shy. Edna scribbled again. By the door, Walter sidled up. "You called that bingo fast. Like you knew." "Just coincidence," Ruth said, scarf hiding her face. He shrugged, walked with her to the bus, like escorting a thought. At the stop, both studied the timetable. Numbers sagged, crooked, like bad fillings. Driver swung the door open. "Exact change only." No one laughed. Ruth sat by the window, pulled the check out, put it back, just making sure. At home, folded paper under the table leg, wobble gone. Faucet still dripping. On the sill, a round puddle, like a stamp on a form. That night, dream. Balls rolling on the bus floor. A hand slipping one back in. Morning, notebook on the table, check beside it. She wrote, "Pastries for all." Numbers added, subtracted. Balance never came. She shut the notebook, set her cup on top. Small gestures kept the hall alive. A minute, maybe two. Then silence came back, heavy. The flaw lived in the cage. That's where it had to be fixed. At break, Ruth slipped backstage. Harold sat on a folding chair, sandwich in hand, eyes on a glass jar at his feet. Inside, colored tokens. He said, "Orphans. They drop, get lost, later find their owner. Look long enough, you see a pattern." Ruth set a pastry bag on the table. "Some folks could use a reminder they're human," she said. Harold nodded, slid the bag under the table. Done. That night, Mildred took the meat basket. She laughed, blushed, hands shaking. People slapped tables. Walter traced neat lines with his pencil. Next week, old man in row 3, 3 free cards in a row. Then the girl from the next town, a holiday turkey. "Luck's on fire!" someone shouted. Whistles, cross signs. Ruth's notebook filled. Names, dates, sums. Notes in the margin, smiling, bitter, eyes down. Then Walter won 3 times straight. The hum turned sharp. "Thursday," Edna said flat. "Pilot audit." Laughter died. Walter smirked like he'd been waiting. After the game, Walter found an envelope in his bag. Went pale, looked around. Faces stared like he was caught. He clenched it, hid it, said nothing. "Heard Edna's brother's a fireman?" someone muttered. "Count the vents if she asks." "Let him count," another said. "Numbers don't lie." Harold stopped by the breaker box, brushed paint flakes with his thumb. On his wrist, white scar from a burn. He told Ruth, "Happens. Kill the power a minute, folks step outside. Remember who owes who a cup of sugar. Turn it back on, dark again. Only now, inside." He poured the orphan tokens hand to hand. Looked at Ruth. A short nod, like an electrician checking current. Savings melted, like ice in a glass, left only a wet ring on the cloth. Pension came, went. Transit money. That night, prize table dressed with a meat basket. Crowd leaned in, smoke smell heavy. Winner, Mildred's neighbor. "Second time this month," Mildred whispered, clutching her purse. "All in the log," Edna said. Pen clicked sharp. Ruth stood close, purse clamped like it might talk. For a second, she thought Edna saw through the fabric. She stepped back, hit a chair, almost dropped her pen. Later, Harold dragged the ball longer than usual. "We were aiming for Mildred," Ruth murmured. "We?" He looked up. "I heard order, not names." Noise swelled. Harold called a number. Winner, someone else. "Too many in a row," a voice muttered. A cough echoed hollow. At the door, a new notice. "Charity Games Commission. Scheduled inspection." One pin held it, corner fluttering. At home, the notebook weighed heavier than her wallet. Columns of names, signs, plus, minus, hold. Pen scraped like an old hinge. Water trembled in the glass with each drip. Next week, every number was a verdict. Eyes darted, hunting patterns. The girl from the next town stopped getting greetings. Walter no longer invited to the common table. By the prize desk, the quarrel burned. "In the log, fine, but this ain't elections," Mildred's neighbor said. "Worse," Edna snapped. "Here, everybody knows each other." Walter brushed past Ruth, close, low voice. "Funny thing, coincidences. Start small, then they grow boots." He left a damp glove mark on the cloth. Ruth wiped it, crushed the napkin in her fist. Paper cracked like thin ice. That night, the hall emptied fast. No arguments. Saved for Thursday. Harold stopped Ruth. "Downstairs." The basement stank of damp and lime. Bulbs swung on a wire. Light jittered. Harold twisted off the cover, snapped a wire, twisted it back. Light held steady. "Shorts out," he said. "Wiring's like numbers. Some hold on a twist, some fall apart." He showed his phone. Photo, Ruth leaning over her card, hand too close to the cage. "Camera clicked itself," he said, calm like meter reading. "Funny shot." No threat, just fact. "You like things in place. Here, places are few. Omaha's got rows." "Rows mean responsibility," Ruth said. "And bigger receipts." A dry grin. He paced, came back with the jar of orphan tokens, set it on the table, pushed it closer. "Watch 'em?" Tokens clinked, rolled. Her profile flashed in the glass. Ruth stayed quiet, hands steady. That was enough. Upstairs, a door slammed. Light flickered, held. Harold sealed the cover, wiped his fingers on his pants. Pocket edge showed an old ID. His face younger. No glasses. Same squint. He said, "Main line's backed by a spare. First burns, second takes the load." He meant power. Ruth nodded like he meant people. Omaha was loud, bright, not a cramped hall with peeling paint. Big tournament, digital board, banners, charity games, tickets checked at the door. Front row, the commission. 2 suits, 1 woman with a tablet. Harold spun the cage smooth, sure, like he'd done it forever. Pattern came too clean. 2 wins at 1 table. The commission glanced at each other. Harold held the ball. Too long. Ruth slapped her card. "Mistake!" she called, like she'd marked wrong. Crowd laughed. Someone yelled, "Happens!" Harold swapped the ball, drew another. Winner in the far corner. Applause rolled. Tablet woman nodded. Eyes eased. In the staff restroom, the mirror was spotted. Ruth turned on the dryer. Hot air drowned the hall. On the hook, a volunteer's jacket, tag still there. She touched the cloth, pulled back. Back outside, Harold's hand found the lever blind, same way he'd touched the wire in the basement. Later, at home, cash stacked neat. New kettle gleamed. Cord smelled of plastic. Phone rang. "Edna," the voice said. "Audits moved, not Thursday, Tuesday, so nobody gets ready." Papers rustled. "You like order, Ruth." Line? Cut. Notebook open on a blank line. A name wanted in. Ruth shut it, set her cup on top. Water trembled with each drip. Days later, Harold wheeled in a new cage. Big, shiny. "Like the big halls," he said. Plugged it in. Spark snapped. Lamp flickered. "See? Works." Burnt plastic mixed with wet rag. Ruth nodded. Later, when the kettle clicked off, she waited. For a second click, in case the first was only a test. New hall, suburban club. White walls, plastic chairs in rows. Light bright, no shadows. People sat straight, like an exam. On stage, Ruth with the mic. Harold spun the cage, but his eyes drifted, like he heard another hum. Front row, Edna, ledger on her knees, pen ready. Commission there too. "06, Ruth called, voice flat. Cards rustled through the hall. Harold pulled a ball. Lights blinked. Darkness. Only sound, dry rattle of balls in the cage. Then, light came back. The chair beside her, empty. On the table, the orphan jar. Beside it, one ball, white, marked B12. Ruth picked it up, held it to the mic. "B12, she said, low. Second row stirred. A hand rose, dropped. Commission traded glances. Tablet woman tapped, found nothing. On the empty chair, a screwdriver, the same Harold used on loose screws. Metal flashed, then dulled. Ruth looked at it longer than at the balls. A cry, chair scraped. Edna wrote something down. Ruth glanced at the jar. Faces, lamps, empty chair reflected in the glass. She shut the notebook, laid her palm on it. Lights flickered, held. "Complaints Thursdays," she said, like weather. Set the ball aside. From the back, a flat bingo. No applause. Ruth stood with the mic. The room breathed with the lamps.